And we're live. Hey, I'm Marco here. I'm one of the code mentors, and you could already tell, like, why is this guy having a brush in his hand? I'm in an art studio here. It's before Christmas, and I'm in Hawaii right now. You see green sunshine behind me, not Boston this time. You can also see like all kinds of utensils to making art projects. So that's where I'm at right now. We're gonna have the info session from right here. If you hear roosters, dogs barking in the background, there's a little canal there. If there's a boat going by, don't worry about it. This is normal today. It's going to be a good adventure today. I'm a bit into nature here, a bit in the boonies, which is awesome. Okay, let's talk about the Firehose Project, code mentoring, all the good things you came here to learn. So again, I'm one of the code mentors, Marco. I'm one of the code mentors at the Firehose Project. And let's talk through, what are we going to cover today? So today I want to talk about multiple things. First, I want to talk a little bit about how our core curriculum works, what's in there, what kind of skills you're getting out of this, what kind of web applications you're going to build. And I'll talk a little bit about the support system, like how do mentorship sessions work, why do we have a Q&A forum, what happens during office hours. And then I kind of want to answer one question that I usually get. It's like, Marco, what can I get out of the Firehose Project? What am I going to be able to build, or do at the end of the program? So let's jump straight in. First, if you have any questions, right below me is a little box. Type in your questions and do that as early as possible because I'm about 2 minutes ahead of you guys. So sometimes I end the hangout and then all these questions pour in. So if you have a question, think about it, put it in there. I'm going to go through them immediately. Also, you all have my email address. Just email me and I'll check my email. And I already got a few questions, so I'm going to go over them and cover them at the end. Okay, cool. What's the core curriculum? What are we going to do there? So the first thing we're going to do is we have you build a web application that shows random quotes that users enter into the database within the first 8 hours, 8 to 10 hours of the program. And that's important, right? The application isn't that complicated, but it is a really good 360-degree view over all the technologies and all the tools that you're going to use, right? So you're going to write some Ruby code, you're going to use the Rails framework, you use Git and GitHub to back up your code and for version control. You push it live to the Heroku server, and you do all of that in the first 10 hours, right? And then the goal is that you can then show your application to your friends and your family and get first user feedback. And that really shows you how you can be in the driver's seat as a developer, creating things for the web. So people are getting excited about it and they actually start using that application, right? First 10 hours, it's pretty straightforward, but it's a big learning step, learning actually how to use the Rails framework in those first, several days if you break it up. Now, this is the Firehose Project, right? We're drinking from the Firehose here, so it's always going to be a steep learning curve, and we want you to do the same thing again. So we crank it up one notch. Next application that you're going to build is a Yelp clone. And I think the most interesting feature that we're going to build during that Yelp clone application is integrating with the Google Map API. So if you're thinking about this, if a user comes to our Yelp clone, they can enter an address into our database, into our form, save it to the database. We're going to write the Ruby code to translate that address into latitude and longitude coordinates, grab those, pass them to the Google Map API, so we get the pin back on the map, right? Obviously, we need more features, right? Inside of that application, we're going to have not only can we create places with pins on the map. So for example, if I have my awesome art studio here and I want to put it on the map, I could do so. But I also want to allow ratings and user commenting. So I'm going to build a feature that does just that. But the other thing is when I have user comments and ratings, one thing I'd like as my owner of my art studio is I would like to get an automated email notification when somebody gives me a rating on my art studio. So we built that feature as well. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're also going to build a dashboard that has some analytics in it, like what's the average rating you received, how many places do you have, how many comments did you receive, those kind of things. So user can actually log in and get a quick overview of what's going on, like what's the rating, what are the latest comments, right? These are all the features we're going to pack into the Yelp clone. That usually takes our students about, say, 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks to complete that. Next, we crank it up a notch. What we're building next is an online learning platform, something similar to Udemy, if you're familiar with that online learning platform. And I think the most important thing that we're going to learn there is when I say platform, that usually means there are different user roles. So that could be a student coming to the platform and registering as a user, as well as an instructor coming to the platform and registering as an instructor. And now we have to track on a database level who's a student, who's an instructor, and how many courses or lectures does an instructor offer, and which one does a student purchase. And now if I say purchasing, we're already getting to the next feature, right? Which is integrating with the payment processing functionality. So we're using Stripe, the Stripe API, so you can actually accept credit cards on your online learning platform and handle who gets what kind of payment based on if they're a student, if they're an instructor, how many courses did a student purchase, and how many courses did an instructor offer, and what was the differences in prices for all these different courses. So if you think about that, that gets quite complicated, and that's really key to that platform, is tracking on a database level all the different relationships between the users and who purchased what and who signed up for which course. And that's really key. Now, other things that we're going to build or introduce at that point is JavaScript. And that's like we're building a simple drag and drop interface for instructors to reorganize their lessons while they setting up a lessons initially, or they can also do that later and edit that lesson. And that's really important because there we learn JavaScript to actually make an improvement to our application from a user experience point of view, right? So we're introducing JavaScript and jQuery and some AJAX requests right when you need it, and you can actually build something. So you learn by doing, and that's really important going throughout the entire experience of the Firehose project, is always learning by doing and actually building something and producing something. And now, while we're doing all of this, while we're building those web applications, right, at the same time what we're doing is we're going to challenge you writing really good Ruby code. So when I mean really good Ruby code, right, is we're using a Rails framework and we need to learn a programming language, Ruby, and those two go together. If we learn really good Ruby code, we can build really advanced web applications down the line. And right now we covered about the first maybe 6 to 8 weeks of the program. What are we going to do next? And that leads me into why we need to write such good Ruby code and actually learn how to do that, is because all the job seekers we're going to put on a group project. In the group projects, we're going to build a chess game as part of a web application. Now you might say, well, a chess game, right? That's not that exciting. But if you're thinking about it, what gets people hired is writing really complicated applications. And writing a chess game and keeping track of all the figures on the field, where they move, which rules are allowed, like who can jump what, who can kick out which other figure, that's really complicated from telling a computer how to do that. And writing that in Ruby code is really challenging. And that's exactly why you're going to get hired, because you can write challenging Ruby code inside of a web application. On top of that, you have to do that as a group project. And if you're looking at how software gets developed in the real world, it's always as a team, right? Best software is built by amazing teams. And so getting that real world experience while you're still in the program in your last 4 weeks, working together with whoa, there's a phone going off. That is awesome. Cool, I didn't anticipate that. All right, we'll just keep going here. This is awesome. So while you're going through the group project, right, you have to work with your other teammates and actually look at their code. What code did they submit? And how can I improve that code? Or am I just gonna allow that code to go through, right? And then also, am I blocking somebody, right? Because we're breaking down the individual features into small coding pieces, right? And that's exactly what happens in the real world. And why is that so important? Is because hiring managers are looking for that, right? If you want to have an impact on day one on a web development team, it's really awesome if you actually know how to use all the tools the way they are designed to be used in the real world, which is coding collaboratively as a team. Now, if you're an entrepreneur and you have your own idea and you're coming to us like, hey, I really want to launch my own application and that's why I'm here, then we have a different track, right? We might put you in a group project to build 1 or 2 features to get the advanced GitHub knowledge out of that and actually know how to work together with a team. But we're also going to take the last 4 weeks to take everything that you learned in the first 8 weeks and apply that knowledge to your own project so you can launch that, right? Now let's talk about some examples, right? What have students actually launched when they go through the program? We're talking about Stephen Fung is probably one of the best students, best examples, and one of our best students, I'd say too. And he built an on-demand delivery application for medical marijuana. So that means it's like an Uber clone that you can see on a map in real time, a driver coming to your doorstep, you walk downstairs, grab your little bag, the payment is already handled, and you're happy, driver is happy, dispensary is happy. That's what he built. So that's really interesting. And then, whoa, now the background noise. I see a boat coming by. Ah, this is so cool. I love it being in different locations. Much more exciting than an office space. Anyway, that's what people build. Another student, Pete, he's really into horse racing. So what he did is he actually took the Yelp clone and built on top of it. Apparently, there's not a good place where you can track horse races across the US, right? There's not a map where you see all the horse racing tracks. So what he did, he made that map, and then he also added analytics on top of it, so you can actually download tipping sheets or betting sheets that tell you what horse is racing today and what the odds are of that horse winning based on past performances on similar weather conditions and so forth. So this is what some students are built, and their friends are using it, and some of them are turning into full-fledged startups, and other ones are really cool projects that are scratching one of the itch that those people had themselves. So that kind of gives you a good understanding of how the core curriculum works, how we're going to put job seekers onto a group project, and why that is so important, and what happens with entrepreneurs and how they go and launch their own applications together with their mentor. Now, mentor, next keyword. Let's jump into the support system, right? So there's three things. There's a Q&A forum, there's office hours, and there are virtual office hours, obviously, completely online, and there is the mentor sessions. Now, before we get to mentor sessions, which are really important, let's talk a little bit about a Q&A forum. And everyone always says, Q&A forum, that's so boring. I was like, no, because it enables us to do so much more during the mentorship sessions. So imagine Thursday night, you're sitting, you're on your computer, you're working, you're hacking, you're writing code, and you see an error message. You go through the process that we have to troubleshoot the error message, and you can't quite help yourself. You're stuck. No problem. You can copy, make a screenshot of your error message, put it into the forum, and within like 1 or 2 hours, you get an answer back, and you're on your way, and you keep coding, right? And oftentimes, that's the small stuff. It's like, hey, in your index.html.erb file, you're missing a comma on line 5. Put it there, you're good, right? You're missing a semicolon there, you're missing an equal sign. Those are the small things that trip people who's starting to learn how to code up a lot in the beginning. Getting them out of the way via the forum is amazing because it allows you to arrive at the mentorship sessions with none of these simple errors. So we can actually spend, during the mentorship sessions, we can spend our time on building on top of your knowledge, right? So that might be, you just finished a coding challenge, and we're looking at your Ruby code. And together, we make that Ruby code better. So it is actually would be accepted on a professional level, right? You might come up with one solution that works, but there's a better one. And so then you can really take advantage of your mentor. Rather than talking about missing commas and semicolons, you can pair program with them and learn what it means to write really good Ruby code. Or for example, we have a whole module on test-driven development, right? So this is about test-driven development, or writing software tests to test your application's functionality automatically, ideally ahead of the time, is something that is best practice standard in the industry, right? So you need to know how to do that. We have a full module dedicated to that. But what's also really important is that if you can take your mentor and say like, hey, I wrote 5 tests, can you help me write a more complicated ones? And you can do that too. And then use that mentor for that time to build on top of your knowledge, right? And so that requires that you arrive at the mentorship sessions without like 25 tiny error messages. Those we take care already beforehand. Now, what about office hours, right? So we have weekly office hours, and that's where all of our students come together. So that means if you just started, you'd be in virtual office hours. Imagine just the Google Hangout with like a lot of people. We use a different software, but the experience is pretty much the same. So you don't see students who are like, you know, in week 8, 9, 10. We oftentimes have alumni come by as well and talk about their experience. But that's a place where you can go when you just started and say like, hey, I have a hard time understanding X, or I have an error message here, or I don't know how these pieces of the web application fit together. And then we help you there. Either the mentors who are in the office hours help you troubleshoot, or oftentimes some of the students who are ahead of the game, ahead of you, they say, hey, look, I had exactly the same problem, and here's how I solved it, right? And then that's, for you, awesome, because you're getting help and you're understanding and you're learning. But it's also good for the students who are ahead of the game, because they can now actually teach back, which is a different kind of learning. And that's really where the office hours become really helpful, because not only are you going to learn new things, but you have the opportunity to teach back and get to know your other classmates or fellow students, let's put it that way. So that's pretty much the support system, right? Think about how the Q&A system helps you arrive at the mentorship sessions error-free, so you can take that 1 hour and really bang out a lot of code and additional learning. And then the office hours that are happening weekly as well, virtually in kind of like a hangout like this. So it's a support system. Now, people usually ask me, well, what's the one thing, like, what am I going to learn? What can I build? What am I able to do after I'm graduating from the Firehouse Project? So I think the most important thing is, like, of course, if your goal is to land a job, that's what we're going to focus on. If your goal is to launch your own application, that's what we're going to focus on. But the simple answer is, if you're going to have an idea for a web application that you want to build, you want to launch, you have the skills to go take a weekend, couple days, build it, ship it out live, put it live to the internet, and test it with your first users. That's what you're going to get, that power of creating web applications that are actually really good. They look good on mobile, they look good on desktop and tablet, and they're actually useful. They combine a lot of useful features. That's what you're going to learn. So that was pretty much the first, the core curriculum, the support system, what you're going to get out of it. Now, I'm going to check for some questions. I know I already have a few, and I'm going to go into them. So if you have any questions, right below me, jump into the box or email me, and we'll figure that stuff out. So, all right, here's a few. Awesome. How are the materials presented? Great question. Here's how things work. You just zoom out a little bit. So if we're in the real world and we're developing, we're coding, one thing we got to do is we always need to read documentation. That is, how can I use this open source code, this code snippet from somebody else, and make it work inside my own application? So there's always written instructions on how to do that. That's why we decided to have our materials, a lot of them in written guides that guide you through really detailed step-by-step of what you need to do. Then we also have a lot of video sessions that we given to you right when you need it, right? So for example, we have a whole section on how do the individual pieces of a web application, the model, the view, the controller, the routes, how do they all fit together? And that's a lot easier explained when we actually have video sessions, right? Rather than you needing to read. Other thing that the written guides enable you is it provides a really valuable resource for you to come back later. For example, you're working on a group project. You're working on your own project. You're working 5 months after you graduated. You want to implement something. You can come back to those guides and actually go reach into them and be like, you know, how did I do automated email notifications? Again, you find that in login. In 2 minutes, you find the place where you need that one code snippet, and you're like, now I get it. This is how I connect it to my server. Now I can send out emails automatically based on an action triggered in my application. So that's why they're so valuable. They're really real world, because that's what we have to do in the real world too, read documentation, but they also enable you to come to this rich resource that you can use down the line. Okay, what else? Here's another one. What's the application process going to be like? Great question. So what we usually expect our students to do is, like, first of all, before you join any coding bootcamp, also, if you're just in the research process and you're like, oh, I'm just looking around in-person coding bootcamps, online coding bootcamps, you guys, other guys, what am I going to do? Go to our website, theFirehoseProject.com. Look in the top nav. It says bootcamp guide. There's a 9-chapter guide explaining how you should structure your research process. And that was written by me and my co-founder, how we would do the research if we were to participate in a coding bootcamp. So this isn't marketing stuff. This is just like hey, here's the questions you should ask. Here's what you need to look out for. Here's the programming languages that you can take into consideration, right? So look into that if you're still in your research process. That really is going to help you a lot. Then the next question is like, what's the application process, right? So we usually want you to already have figured out that, hey, I really like to code, and you're not going to be like, to give an example, be somebody who applies for medical school without knowing if they actually like to see blood, because once you're going to work in a hospital, you're going to see a lot of that. So if you apply for an online coding bootcamp and you want to launch your own application or want to have a job as a web developer, make sure you actually like to write code, right? So that means I usually like to see some coding examples from you guys before we have you in the program, right? So if you have something on GitHub, if you build a website already, if you went through wrote some Ruby code, right? Send that via an email to me and attach that. If you don't have something or you're not quite sure if you like it, send me an email. I'm happy to give you guys some pre-work. You need to solve some coding challenges. If you can do that, you're really, really ahead of the game already because you prepared. So pre-work definitely is really important before you go into a coding bootcamp if you don't already have some good coding background. So then afterwards, we usually talk to our students beforehand. Quick Google Hangout. We talk a lot about your goals and what you want to get out of to make sure our curriculum and everything aligns, and we can customize that for you so your experience is top-notch. So yeah, definitely coding samples first, then we're going to jump on a Hangout, answer all the questions, and talk a lot more about your goals. That's kind of like the application process. Afterwards, yeah, we'll give you the mentor that will be best for you to reach your goals. So if your goal would be to get a job as a web developer, we're going to give you a mentor who is, you know, hired multiple people as developers for their team. And now usually people say, just got another question via email, is like, well, who are your mentors, right? So, well, we're looking at that as we have people right now who are senior web developers at PayPal. There were former CTOs at Techstars companies, and now they're working at other companies. Then we have the head of product or VP of engineering from Bitly, the link shortener that Twitter is using, or the or Flickr as well. So these are top-notch mentors. They know what they're doing, right? So we're really picky about selecting our mentors, and we're only letting mentors who know how to teach and know their Ruby and their Rails code and have real-world experience for multiple years teach our students. So I'd rather send a mentor away than giving a bad mentor to our students. So that's really important to us. Okay, what else we got? Check on some other questions. All right, Rose, good question. I've been accepted into an advanced Ruby course. Would I be a decent fit for the Firehose project? Rose, to be completely honest with you, probably, but I'd like to see some coding samples, right? There's a lot of people who accept students into their program, and I really want to make sure that you actually, I'm very sure you'd be a good fit for the Firehose project, but I want to make sure that what you want to get out of it, your goals align with what you can give you, and just have an honest conversation and also look at some of your code. So yeah, just send me some of your code samples that you have. You probably had to submit something to that advanced Ruby code as well, and then we'll take it from there. Hope that answers your question. Okay, let's see what else we have. I love it. Keep asking those questions. They're good. Oh, I got one here from Spurdy. What is that? Okay, the programming language and all the technologies. Great question. Okay, so we're teaching Ruby on Rails, right? Ruby the programming language, Rails the framework. Then we're also going to teach you how to use Git, that's version control, how to use GitHub, right? Advanced topics in GitHub, like branching, merge conflict, resolving that, working as a team collaboratively. That's a tool that's used in the real world, like by startups, big tech companies as well. You need to know how to do that. SQL queries, how to query your database, right? How to pull information out of a database, really important. We teach you that too. We use the Postgres database. Also, how to push your applications live using a Heroku server. We teach you JavaScript, right? I said we're going to build we're improving the user experience for one of our applications. That's when we introduce JavaScript. a bit of jQuery, and some Ajax for having to refresh the page without full page reloads. What else are we going to do? I think that is it in a nutshell. We do a lot of coding challenges, so you write really good Ruby code. And if you remember from earlier, I said we're going to build that chess game. That is really key, that we that you know how to write good Ruby code. And just like a story on the side, like one of our students was in a job interview, and they asked him, how would you build a chess game? And he was like, oh, funny you should ask. I just built one, and I built it with a team. I'm still on it, right? He was still in the program when he had that job interview. And that changed the entire dynamics of that job interview, the technical interview, a lot, because he actually built a game already that they were thinking of asking him how he would design it, right? And that kind of shows like how real world those applications are, because they're challenging and they're really difficult to build, and being able to think that through as a team is really what's going to set you apart in the job hunt. All right, let's see what else we got. Great question, Bertie. So the other one was like, okay, what about programming language and working on C? Well, C is a bit different than Ruby. I'd say Ruby is a lot easier to read and write than C is. Transferring skills between programming languages, yeah, that works. So that one student that I just referred to, he was actually interviewing for a company that writes in Python, and he was learning Ruby, but it doesn't matter which programming language you learn at the beginning, because you can switch to the next one. You need to understand the concepts, and you need to understand how it works, right? Obviously, everyone has favorites. If you learn Ruby, yeah, you can transfer your skills as to C. That's it. If you know that you want a C job, and that's at your company as you described, you may be better off, honestly, going straight for C rather than doing the route via Ruby. So let's see what else we have. Cool. Let's see. Got some more. Awesome. Rose already sent me the GitHub profile. Thumbs up. I love that. I'm going to check that out later. Take a look at that. Okay, doesn't look like I have any more questions. Oh, here's one more. What about payments? How does this all work? Payments, what's the cost of the program, right? So currently we're charging $4,500 for the full 12 weeks. That includes all the mentorship sessions, access to the office hours, and then lifetime access to all the guides. They're consistently being improved, so you're always going to get a lot of new value out of that, even though when you graduated the program. If you pay everything up front, we currently give a $500 discount. Everyone pays the same at the Firehose Project. We don't give discounts behind the back of students, because you're going to work at a group projects together, and everyone should have paid the same. So if you ask me for discounts, I'm going to tell you the $500 if you pay up front. That's the only discount we're currently giving, because it is fair and transparent to all your group members on your group project. If you want to pay in installments, you can do that too. We have $1,500 per month over 3 months, or $900 over 5 months. So $900 monthly installment. So we offer those too. So you can also see them on the website, up in the top nav, theFirehoseProject.com. You can see tuition, and you can find that there. So let me double check if I got anything here. Guys, if you still have any question, throw them into the box below me or email me. Doesn't look like it. Yeah, I think I'm pretty much done. Guys, I think we're going to call this a wrap. This was fun. Thanks for beaming yourself into this art studio here on an island in Hawaii with all the sun in the background. This was fun times. If you have any questions that I didn't answer, email me. You guys all have my email address. Looking forward to talking more with you. Send me your code samples. Ask for pre-work. Happy to help you guys out. In the meantime, hey, happy holidays. Have fun with family and friends, and stay awesome. This is a lot of fun. Take care, guys.